Okay, so now let's talk about, so we'll go back and we'll just talk about how we thought, we looked through the standards and we thought about that plan for that lesson design, that unit plan, and looking at the standards. So now, as special educators, we now move through looking at step 4, and that's what step 4 I'm sharing on this screen is. Now we have to think about the students' IEP goals. So the students that we serve, we have to think about their goals. And one of the tools that we love to share and have access for our special education teachers is the Iep Guidance Document. And Denny, if you want, I'm going to click on that, Denny, and share it with them. But if you'd like to just say, if there's anything you want to talk about with the Iep Guidance Document, jump right in there and say that. Or Brenda, if you're here with us, I'm going to just open this tool and this link.
Certainly, the guidance document is the definitive piece that we go by when we are looking at developing effective IEPs for our students. This is what we refer to as the Bible when it comes to developing the IEP in the state of Kentucky. This is what we have to go. There's no other definitive guidance document out there. This is it. And so this is on KDE. It's not changed tremendously. I think it was last published in July of 2019. And you know, it just goes through step by step. And the one thing to note is that if you do receive word that you're being audited, 90% of the time it's around what's in this document itself, and being able to develop challenging, ambitious goals are certainly a big part of what's involved here. And I'll go ahead and plug on August 17th for any of you guys that would like to join. We're going to do a full training on IEP, and the guidance document will be the backdrop, but there will be a lot of virtual lens there as to look through as we work through this, and as we seek to do this in a way that's going to meet the needs of our students in this virtual setting.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so here is, you can find all kinds of tools and resources. So we just wanted to bring your attention to this. As we're thinking about that unit and lesson design, we have to think about that. So it gives you the KRSs, the Kentucky Revised Statutes, it gives the Kentucky Administrative Regulation links, and the Compliance Record Review links. So this document is available to you as a special education teacher. When you sit down to write an IEP, you want to have this tool. I always printed it off and had it right there with me when I was developing an IEP, so that I had examples, I had tools and resources I needed, and that way I could, I felt like I was able to much better pull together a good solid IEP with using that tool. So let's talk just a little bit about, if you'll see this graph that's on the screen under the step 4 section, you'll see that it talks about how we write an IEP goal. And we're going to just do a little activity with this, and I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl in a second. But this one, we're going to follow this guidance around the audience, behavior, circumstance, degree, criterion, evaluation, method of measurement, frequency of data collection. Those are all things that we have to consider as we develop an IEP goal. So I'm sharing with you an IEP goal that I've used before for writing for a student who has a specific learning disability in written expression. And so we're going to take a look at this goal. So I'm going to ask you all to read this goal and to think about this goal and look at the table below that as you're processing and thinking about that. And as we do that, Cheryl's going to join us with a little activity.
Hi guys. So, Dion, if you can allow controls for me to share the screen. I think you'll have to make me a presenter or co-presenter. Okay, I think that did it, Dion. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. It'll take me just a second. All right, guys. So can everybody hear me? Today, we're going to look at annotation tools. So, of course, we're using Zoom today. And so there are some engagement features within Zoom that you can definitely use with your students, even if it's just to check to see if they're listening, okay? So, Dion's going to kind of do an activity with you with this, but I want to share with you how you get those annotation features going. Now, if you're using a phone, you may not be able to do this, okay? But if you're using a computer, you should be fine with using it, okay? So the first thing you'll do, you should see on the top of your screen some controls. So the bar will say mute, stop video, security, and a few little things like that. And then under that, there'll be a green or sometimes orange, it says a screen sharing piece, and then it'll be a little red tab there as well. And that tab should say view options, okay? So go ahead and click on that, and you can see my screen hopefully and see that it goes to annotate. So I want you to click on that annotate screen. Okay, so that's step 2 is clicking on annotate. Okay, I want to give you just a minute to find that. Once you click on annotate, you'll have a menu come up, and you'll see it here in step 3. And so on that menu, you can select draw. Okay, and so then step 4, you kind of pick what you're going to draw. Personally, I always kind of like that big fat line. That's just kind of my personal preference, but you can really pick any of them that you would like for this particular activity. So go ahead and see if you can't find that. We did earlier the thumbs up. So there you go. Somebody's found it. So I'll let you go ahead and practice that on my screen before I turn it back over to Dion once you find that. You can circle anything or just make marks on the screen, just kind of like this is your scrap sheet, guys. So it looks like about 4 or 5, maybe 6 people. Good. 7. Okay. Of course, you can change all the fancy colors and things like that. But I really love this for students, especially if you're giving them options on the screen, kind of like Dion's going to share with you in a moment. So I'll give you just another minute or 2 to play around with that. You're welcome to change the colors, or there's even another option beside the draw, and it's stamp. And that's one of my probably, oh, somebody's found it with the hearts. That's one of my favorites, especially if you're doing something called a consensogram, or you're trying to make tallies. So maybe if everybody likes, you know, red, they'll pick a heart. If everybody likes yellow, they'll pick a star or something like that. All right, does anybody have any questions about that before I turn it back over to Dion for the activity? All right, Dion, I'm going to go ahead and clear our screen, and we can go ahead and get started. So as teachers, remember that when you move if you're using a PowerPoint slide or something like that, those annotations are going to stay within your screen, okay, guys, until you clear those off. So make sure that you clear those. Same process that you started with. You'll see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's a little clear button down there on your thing that I'm circling. It's a trash can, so you can clear those off. So what I'm going to do now is clear all the drawings. And there you go. We've got a clean slate again. So Dion, I'm going to stop my share and let you get back to your activity. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I'm going to reclaim the host. And so as you saw that Cheryl and I were back and forth and sharing, claiming the host, you know, think about that from that co-teaching lens, how this could occur virtually. That's an opportunity we can do that.
Yeah, and the thing I love about it, you can obviously see my photograph and Dion's photograph, so it doesn't really matter. Dion's just down the hall from me, but it doesn't really matter. You can still see both of us, and we can both interject and those kinds of things as we need to. From a co-teaching lens, this is slick, and we do have some examples of that in the region and some videos that we can share with you from Breathitt County, a co-teaching model.
We do. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so let's do a little activity. We're going to practice the annotation. And Danny, you and Brenda can jump right in as we move through this. But let's just practice with the annotation. So I'm going to ask you guys to go back in there and find that tool that Cheryl's telling us about with the annotation. So I'm going to ask you guys to get that tool out with the annotation and decide what you're going to, which one you want to do. But let's go through this process of looking at this IEP goal and using the practicing with the annotation. So I'm going to decide the draw. But what I'm going to ask you to do first is let's identify the audience by circling who the audience is. So oh great, somebody's quick. So we could do, if I want to have, yeah, perfect. Good. So you can see based on the screen how we can do this and have students engage in this piece, how we can have students annotate and make a mark. Okay, I'm going to clear that, but keep that ready. Danny, would you like to have them do something different this time? What would we like?
Here, let me unmute. Why don't you find the, let's just go in a straight line here. Let's find the behavior and
Good. Anybody else want to try it? Go ahead. Well, I think yeah, there we go. Someone else has used a different tool.
Yeah, and while everybody's doing that, one thing we had talked a little bit about this morning here at the KVEC office that I don't know that I thought about prior to our conversation, but we were talking about in terms of using it as a formative assessment. So you could hypothetically assign students different colors, and it may be that you'll only know which student is red or which student is green. And so I could look, and if I know that Doug Smith is that red slim line that I could mark, and that could be a part of my progress monitoring. So I would know that, okay, Doug got the answer right, and then maybe Denny Paul is the light green, so maybe he didn't get it right. And so I could use that for progress monitoring if I had a color coding system that the students would stick with. Of course, that may not be something you get to do on day one, but as your students become more familiar with that, I really think you could work on those formative assessment pieces and that quick assessment with that.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll practice a couple more. I'm gonna let Denny choose the next one we'll do. I'm gonna clear the drawings. There we go. And so, see, I can clear that.
One of my favorites that lots of times when I'm reviewing files, folks tend to leave out because it's a little confusing, but you're supposed to embed the method of measurement. So let's see if you can find the method of measurement that they're using here by circling the method of measurement. Very good. So checklist would be the answer. Very good.
Okay. All right, one more. Let's try one more and then we'll move on.
Let's look for the degree criterion.
Okay.
The example top.
Okay, Dean. Okay, great. And here is the degree criterion. When we think about here is the degree criterion. Let's look at that. So that's why I added this table for this example now.
Notice that it doesn't just say 70% accuracy, but it also makes that a little more definitive by including on 4 consecutive assignments. So you really need both pieces when you do that degree criterion. In both examples, you'll see 18 of 20 words on 4 consecutive probes. It just really hones that in and makes it a little more definitive in its measure.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm going to ask you to try one more thing on the the screen at the bottom where you can select if you're going to draw or you're going to text. Click on stamp, and I'm going to ask you to put a check on the frequency of data collection. I want you to just put a check on the frequency. So we're talking about the frequency. Great. Everyone else, oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Perfect. We've got quick learners here. We're moving right along. So the important thing about this is, as we're thinking about this and we're doing that lesson design or that unit plan, is that we are going to be progress monitoring this to see if students, if we're progress monitoring this goal. So we're going to think about that when we think about our assessment. We're going to think about how frequent. If we're doing a unit of study, we're going to think about when are we going to collect data? What did we say we were going to do in terms of this IEP? And then that's how we, as part of that planning and assessment, that's how we make those decisions. So you guys did a great job on that. So I'm going to go ahead and let you all just, we're going to clear those drawings. And you can just close that out. If and I'm going to turn it over to Denny because he's going to talk to us a little bit now about, first 3 or 4 steps were, deciding what platform you're going to use. The next one is setting up your classroom procedures. Then step 3 is to look at the standards. And then step 4 is, okay, how does that match with what the IEP goals are for my students? If this is the student's IEP goal and I'm in the resource room and I'm using this one-to-one or I'm using small group instruction, how do I plan for that? So Denny's going to talk to us now about the specially designed instruction. So I'm going to turn the screen over to him and let him. Do you want to use this screen, Denny, or you want to share your own screen?
No, this is fine. You can share.
Okay.
You can continue
Okay.
to share, and I'll try to talk through the background noise that I'm getting here close to my office. I apologize.
Okay.
I think they must be cleaning something or sawing something in half or whatever. Notice that Dion said when she turned it over to me, he's going to talk just a little bit about. Dion and I are in a race quite frequently as to which one can out-talk the other. So she's done a good job this morning out-talking me, so now I'm going to try to out-talk her. But anyway, what I wanted to do is I want to go back and talk to you a little bit. Can everyone hear me? Just give me a thumbs up if you can with your reaction. If you can hear me, or if I sound like I'm screaming, then you can tell me, or you can put it in the chat and say yes, whichever one you want. You can do the reactions either way. Okay, so now the background noise is gone. But what I wanted to go back and say this in terms of when we're looking at the standards. Why do we look at the standards? Well, when No Child Left Behind came about, we were charged as special education teachers to both provide special design instruction around the skill deficits, and we have to find what those are, but we also have to give them the access to grade level standards because that's where they're being assessed. And Dion's already alluded to that. And one of the things that the State Department did, and Dion, if you want to click on the hot link there, the SDI infographic, I'll go ahead and talk a bit about this. This is a one-pager that the State Department came out with, I want to say about 1.5 years ago. Maybe Brendan knows exactly when that happened, but this just really tells you, it kind of gives you the law. And it kind of gives you some definition for what the basis is and what's the background behind being specially designed instruction. If you go back to Public Law 94-142, special education and specially designed instruction kind of are interchangeable. And you see that they've included what it is. We basically say lots of times when we're talking about it, it's really what the teacher does that's different for the students with disabilities. That goes beyond that universal design for learning, that goes beyond the core instruction or whatever. So this is a nice little infographic, one-pager, kind of helps you to understand and gives you some background as to where we are with that. So it's for improving educational outcomes for students with disabilities through specially designed instruction. And down the middle there, it says specially designed instruction means adapting the content, the methodology or delivery of instruction to address the unique needs of a child with a disability and to ensure access of the child to the general curriculum included in the program of study. So you see all that alluded to. And really the key here is, that we use research-based effective practices, highly effective practices to do special things in our teaching. We adapt, we differentiate, We do all those types of things. We change the methodology. We look at the content. We look at our delivery, and we are looking at each individual, and we're having to find what is the special design instruction that goes along with this goal that we've set, that we just talked about. And so I wanted to just show you that. Can we get to page 2 on this? Is there a way to get to page 2 on this? There's a second page, I think, that goes with this, maybe. Yeah, down. And look, just stop right there for just a second. I really like this graphic here, too, when we talk about equity and equality. Quality on the left, everybody's getting the same thing. One of the best things I ever heard about universal design for learning was the bowling analogy. And when you do universal design for learning, you're designing your lesson to meet the needs of all learners, the equity on the right-hand side of your screen. If you take just a second, and we're going to practice a little bit more, let's go up to the annotation. If you have your annotation, let's go to the one that says text. Let's click on text. Can you guys do that? So we click on text, and it brings up a text box, and you can actually type words in there like equity. So you could use a whiteboard and have students answering questions all the while. But I wanted to point this out. If you're going back to my bowling analogy, when you do universal design for learning, you're actually looking at those bowling pins, and lots of times, if you're a bowler and you just bowl that ball right down the middle of the lane, you're going to hit those guys in the middle every time, and you're going to get a 7-10 split. Those pins that are in the back corners, like those students that are in the back corners, you're going to miss out on those kids. But if you design your lessons for equity, you're going to hit all those folks, and you're going to scaffold them up, and you're going to provide the instruction that's going to hit those students, but you're also going to get those students down the middle of the aisle while you are down the middle of the lane. So if you're shooting for the 7-10 by bowling the ball down the side of the lane and putting a little hook in there, and you're trying to hit that 7-10 pin, which is really different, has unique needs of unique learning, then certainly you're gonna hit those kids down the middle, and I just love that. So this really speaks to that, and that it's good to see. I'm a visual learner, and I really like the way this is laid out. So very important to identify that as well as what type of students you're working with, what type of learning styles they have. Now, if you look on the resources page, one of the things that I wanted to point out, there's some really good resources here. Of course, you got your academic standards and your early childhood standards, which are those appropriate activities for early childhood students, those students that are 3, 4, and 5 that haven't entered kindergarten yet, that you can allude to when you're dealing with those ages. And then if you go on down, you'll see that there's a highleveragepractices.org. There's Hattie's high yield effect size and evidence-based practices. All those are really, really good resources for you to, if you go to those sites, there's lots of good information. And Hattie, I think CEC did the high leverage practices, and Hattie's work really ranks the effect size of learning, and the number one effect size is making sure that we're doing good teaching, that we have I think it's teacher efficacy is at the top of the list on Hattie's high yield effect size. So adapting to the virtual setting is very, very important, and so you can allude to these as we move through. But if you want to go on to the next screen, Dion, I probably talked way too much about this slide, but I get excited about this infographic because it's really, really a nice infographic. Or go back to your previous screen.
I did want to share something.
Go ahead.
Chastity added in the chat box how important this would be to share with the general ed teachers, so that they could see this tool and that thinking how we move education for outcomes for students with disabilities. So think about that, what that looks like. We are familiar with that and we know that, but this would be a great tool for regular ed, because sometimes regular ed teachers have kids in their classroom 80% of the day. So this would be a good tool for them to share.
And you know, Dion, Chastity, I appreciate that comment because that's a great segue into what I was going to talk about next. We did a book study at the co-op on John O'Connor's, I'll hold it up here, you probably can't see it. It's Great Instruction, Great Achievement. Can't see it because I've got my green screen on, but Dion may have a copy of it somewhere handy because it's not too far away from where we are. But I linked his PowerPoint, and I just say it's a great read for developing your list of SDI. And one of the things that he talked about was that a great deal of our students that are on the diploma track are in the co-teaching setting a lot of the day, 80% of the day. And so he said one of the best ways to really attack students, those gaps, is to make sure that we are, you know, improving our core instruction first and foremost. And in our design of that core instruction, we are thinking about special design instruction as a way of reaching all of our students. And you know, but I want to pose this question to you. I want you to think about if a parent walks into your classroom or walks in and has a parent conference with you, and they pose this question to you. I want you to think about this. And this is one of the things that John O'Connor really drives home. What I'm going to be the parent. I'm going to ask the teacher. Dion's going to be the teacher, and I'm going to say, Miss Bates, could you tell me what it is that you're going to do for my child? What is the specially designed instruction that you're going to provide? And then Dion's going to say she's going to come up with a great list of things that are really, really impactful and really, really work to develop some great achievement for students with disabilities. So I challenge you as special ed teachers to think about this, to think about what specially designed instruction matches the goals that we're setting for our students. What is it? What are those strong research-based, evidence-based practices that we can come up with that really, really work for that unique need that's identified in that present level when we're talking about developing those present levels? So specially designed instruction, and if you want to, Dion, you can click into John O'Connor's PowerPoint there for just a second, and I'll show you. I just linked a bunch of stuff in here for you to go to and look at. But he, and you can go on down through that, just kind of make everybody sick here for a second. We don't need to know about him that much, but he has a great, I think it's down around slide 20 maybe. But at any rate, and you can go back out of this. You can go back out. That's fine. We don't need to go through that really. That's going to take too long. But what I wanted to do is I wanted you to see that his book is broken down there for you, and you can go, you know, to take a deeper dive here into this information. He does a great job of giving you what his list is, and you know, his list is you know, really rooted in what I've got down the side here. Do we have a great opportunity in our classes, in our teaching, for allowing students to have practice turns and feedback? He says that is the #1 impactor for student achievement, especially with students with disabilities, that you're not only giving them the opportunity to practice, and this is kind of, we've also melded this work in with Anita Archer's work in the I do it, we do it, you do it kind of mantra. But when we talk about that, we do it with students with disabilities, we do it a lot. We do it, and we give them lots of opportunity for practice, to make mistakes, to give them feedback. And we really have to think about how we're going to do that through the virtual lens now. So what I was able to do here was to link several pieces of information. If you want to just go up and look at Dion on that previous page, practice turns and feedback really quick, just the link there.
Yeah. And the good point here is that those links are available for you. You will have this document, so you can go back and look at these as often as you need to, or as you get opportunities to do that.
So you know, he goes into this is a little article from a website that really says drastically increasing practice turns and feedback. And you know, John O'Connor really pushes the fact that we've got to practice and we've got to give feedback. So that's there. There's more reading down the page, and it really explains how you go about doing that. So we can go back to the main page. And we go right on down the page here, and I have several things linked. One of the things that that goes right along with these practice turns and feedback is having your students retrieve information from a blank slate. And so I wanted to put that in there with that. Retrieval of information from a blank slate, and if you want to click on that one, you can do that as well. So this is a great website, this retrievalpractice.org, how to use retrieve, and these are free downloadable information sites that, for lack of a better way of putting it, but these are downloadable little documents that you can just really read all you want to about retrieval practice. And so one of the problems that we have with students with disabilities is that they have memory issues. You know, if they have cognition that's impacted by their disability, we need to really look at that and think about that. But this is one of the most powerful ways of increasing student achievement, in that we build into our lessons their ability to retrieve information from a blank slate. So we're always giving them the opportunity to practice retrieving information from a blank slate. So that's really all I want to say about that. That's a great website right there. And then I wanted to think about too the use of think, pair, share, and he talks a lot about that when we're talking about embedding, you know, vocabulary instruction into our lessons. It's his number 2 strategy. His number 2 top specially designed instruction component. And so if you want to click on that think, pair, share to extend just real quick, we'll look at that just real quick. Here's a little the teacher toolkit. This is a little graphic organizer that can help you if you send students to breakout rooms, and you've already been to one breakout room this morning. If you send students to breakout rooms, they could go in and they can work on that, or you can have them use the annotate tool, and you can go to town with that. You can pose a question, and you can have them think independently and have them come together and pair up and share their ideas. Then you could even extend this a little bit further and have them reflect and write. But let's go back. I think I've shown you enough websites now. Let's go back to the main screen, and let's just think about, you know, what great instruction is. And, you know, it's guided by the performance standards. We've already talked about that. It's rigorous and research-based. It's evidence-based practices that we include, and that's really where the explicit instruction comes in. That's really where the specially designed instruction comes in. And he is really a great proponent for using Anita Archer's explicit instruction to work with students with disabilities. That he really feels like that's the best way, that really explicit instruction of getting them to achieve. And then we make it engaging and exciting. And I've been talking quite a bit, so it's probably not been all that engaging and exciting, but using these tools that we've been demonstrating all morning, that's what makes the lesson engaging and exciting, finding out what the students really, really enjoy working on. And then you got to assess it continuously. We got to take some data, and we got to keep that data, and we got to be able to display that data and talk about that data. And that's really a big piece of providing FAPE when we talk about being compliant, you know, being able to have the data to show that we've definitively provided the IEP in the way that we said we were going to. And then we tailor this, all of this instruction through instructional groups. And one of the things that he alludes to is that, really, if you have two people in a co-teaching situation, they should be leading small groups. That's the best way to teach students with disabilities, teach students that are in the gap. And so, but he goes on and really describes what his 6 things are. And those are, up at the top. If you move up, I can't remember now. I've talked so much, I can't remember what I talked about. Yeah, right here. So retrieval of information, practice terms and feedback, embedding explicit vocabulary instruction down there on the 2nd page. And then teaching students to metacognitively work on their reflection, to think about their learning, to really, that's one of the problems that students with disabilities have. They have organization issues. They have difficulty, really reflecting on what they've learned, really organizing that in their mind. So if you have them do some writing strategies, and I've attached some things here that really help you with metacognitive strategies. You can see we go right on down the page and kind of try to give you some information about that. Embedding explicit vocabulary instruction, super, super important that if you're working with students with disabilities, we know they have reading and writing difficulties, and it's so super important to talk about or to include that as a specially designed instruction. And then those additional fill in the gap interventions that he alludes to really talks about what we've talked about already, in that, yes, we got to work on those deficiencies and meet the students where they are, but we also have to provide them with some tools to give them access to the grade level instruction on, that they're, where they actually are. If they're in the 6th grade, we're working on the reading in the 4th grade, but we're also having them read information from a 6th grade level. And we do that by providing them with some tools to do that. So, and then also you would have possibly a strong positive behavioral support for your students with disabilities. Lots of times we have students that have very varied backgrounds, and they come to us with problems and troubles and different kinds of behaviors. So we got to have some positive behaviors to kind of model and show them. And we put some positive behavior classroom information in on. So it's, it's just a really, really resource tool here for you. And then, when we talk about some other issues that I would add to that, or some other topics that I would add, would be scaffold instruction and the use of mnemonics to aid memory. That kind of goes along with retrieving information. And so those are all there. And I've made links to all those with some of the best sites that I could find that would help further your information, allow you to take a deeper dive into developing your own list, going back to developing a real strong list so that you could answer that question. If Mrs. Bates comes in and sits down, the parent comes in, I'm the parent, and I say to her, what's your list? Then you've developed your list. I'm not telling you that this is the list you have to have. You know your students, you know what their unique needs are. So you really got to develop that around that and think about those students as we are really seeking to meet their unique needs. And then one of the things that when I do folder review, I see a lot is sometimes depending on your level of experience, I will see SDI that does not match the annual goal. So I want you to think about making sure, and looking at your IEPs and thinking, does the annual goal and does the SDI match? Do they make sense? Can we really provide what we need to provide for that student in the annual goal with the special design instruction that we've chosen? And then as we move on, also linked for you, sometimes we get these things confused. What's specially designed instruction as opposed to what supplementary aids and services are? And we say what supplementary aids and services are in a nutshell is what the student needs to be successful, what their unique needs are. And there's a great document on the KDE website, and we've linked it here for you. The lesson plan and development handbook, sometimes referred to as the schoolhouse document. And Dion has clicked on that link, and there it is. This is on the KDU website, and I love this document. It was last published in February 2014, but it's still very, very relevant. You can see explicit instruction, scaffold instruction, direct, all those different ways of meeting these students' needs. And you see, mnemonics there and multiple means for practice opportunities. So all of this is really housed there, and it's a quick read. Those first 10 pages are really, really nice. And then you have a breakdown based on the category. If you go on over into the meat of the document itself, you have some mention of highly effective strategies, and then you have some mention of universal design for learning. But then you get over here and you'll find there's scaffolding. I think it's about page 12, so you click on that quickly. Let's leave it even there. Here we go, right here. So you can see there's a nice breakdown. If you have if the deficiency is listening comprehension, here's what the teacher does for the student. Here's some of the strategies that you would use to do for the student. And then over on the right-hand side, which is the topic of what we're talking about, it's the supplementary aid service. What does the student need? If you can ask yourself that question, does the student need this? Does the student need extended time? Does the student need preferential seating? Does the student need voice to text or text to voice? Those types of things. What is there assistive technology that they need? But there's a nice breakdown. If you go on through this, Dion, just a little bit further down, maybe to the next topic. Let's go on down to reading. But it takes you all the way through it. You can see with fluency and receptive language there and pragmatics. This all has to do with communication. But you get to the academics portion, and here's basic reading. Here's some things on the left-hand side of the page, the special design, what the teacher does, and then here's what the student needs. So it really has that broken down well for you, and it helps you put you into a ballpark of where you can do your own back reading, and you can really dive in. And we've got those other strategies linked for you, and you can really, really understand what it is you're doing when you're developing this IEP to meet the unique needs of the student. And we can go back out of this now. I also wanted you to think about assistive technology. And I listed a laundry list of supplementary aids and services. One of the things from a compliance standpoint that KDU really frowns upon, I quickly say this, be careful do not put a laundry list of supplementary aids and services. Only list the things in the IEP that you know that you're going to do for the student. Okay, but I put that laundry list there all the same. So it's the second bullet there under the resources. And then I also just linked you a speech to text, a Google extension on Chrome, and a text to speech extension where you can have, the student can have text read to them, or they can say things and have that turned into text. So those are two really good tools that you can use in a virtual setting that will allow for the student to really blossom in this virtual time. Okay. I probably won the verbosity race there, so I apologize.
Well, what I was going to say is we are at 10:45, and we have a next section that's going to take a little bit because Vonda and Stephanie are going to take us through actual lesson design and plan. So I think it would be a good time for us to take about let's take about a 10-minute, 15-minute break. Let's take about a 15-minute break. Let's come back together at 11. So we'll pause right there and give everybody just a minute to get up and stretch their legs, and we'll come back together at 11, and then we're going to go through a lesson. So we're way past the halfway point, and we've got some more things that we'll share with you all, but let's come back together at 11 o'clock.